All right, time for part 2 of our video, setting up easy HTMLQ using the new EQ configurator. So here we are, we've started the configurator. There's just a shortcut on my desktop, and we've already downloaded the easy HTMLQ version 2.0, right? We have actually set it up here on, oops, not there. That's where I have all my movies. Here we go. We've set it up here where I have Ken Easy HTMLQ. It's just directly on my desktop, right? Just so that it's easy to find. And this is going to be important for our next step in setting up our next online Q study. So we've downloaded again Easy HTMLQ, right? And we're going to use the EQ configurator to set up our project. So the first thing we do is click on Navigate to the Easy HTMLQ base folders where the file index.html is located, and we're going to do that by clicking on this box, and it's landed us right into Documents. So we'll come over here. There's my folder on my desktop, and I'm looking again for the index.htmlq. So we'll have to remember where that is. So no, we're just selecting the folder. All right, so there's our folder. So we're going to select our folder, and and we're going to wait for our EQ configurator here. Now it'll just find the index.html file. So copy our location here. And now I have to start up my web browser. So I'm still using my Google, so just localhost 9990, and it says welcome, right?
I'm sorry.
Oops, I don't know why it just said I'm sorry. So, right, we can just click on continue, and right, we see the beginning of what our demo looks like, right? So basically we've just started, right, a study that's already kind of pre-programmed into the HTMLQ, easy HTMLQ 2.0 download, right? So we can see this is how our system is going to work. So we're going to come back over here. So, right, default project files loaded in your browser, right? And so this is how basically our server works, right? So we started with just testing our server startup. Now we're going to come over here to our configuration files. So we're going to start off really doing what we would have set up by hand, right? Looking at HTML coding, but now we have this nice interface. So we could have our project name. It could just be my Q project 1.0, and that's what I'll just leave it as for this demonstration, right? So just some, again, some configuration things that all of which we could have changed in our earlier version of Easy HTMLQ, but we would have had to do it the old-fashioned way, right? So whether or not we have a project access code, if we want to restrict access to our Q study, because we only want certain people, maybe people at an agency, that we're studying, maybe we only want them to have access, and so having somehow the link alone isn't right enough for them to access. So I could just make up a code which is going to be just horribly insecure. Do not use a access code 12345. I'm just using this for a an example, right? They're not going to have an ID number because participation is going to be anonymous. Right? So then we come here. The login script is a legacy option from FlashQ. In other words, it's from the original version of FlashQ opposed to Easy HTMLQ. It allows the user the use of a custom software to log participants into the project from outside the Easy HTML. Right? and we're just not going to use that. Right? Next up. Right, we're ready to think about, there's a typo, the initial sorting of the cards into our 3 piles, typically, right, set up as something like disagree, neutral, and agree. And so whether or not we want to show step 3, right, the card swapping grid, show step 4, individual card comment screen, show step 5, questionnaire, which we're going to touch on, and right, we're going to disable the back button. So once they get to a certain point, there's not a reason really for them to go backwards, especially once they've right submitted their sort. And then by default, the Q sort cards and text font sizes are responsive to the size of the card. So in other words, how much text you have and whether or not right, they'll be able to see all of the text. So I haven't really played around with this. So right now, set a constant card height, right? The default is false, and we'll just stay with that. Set a constant card width, right? Also set to false. And then we're ready to get to our survey question creator, right? So, for instance, we could have them enter their birth year, right? Right, so this is an example. This is how, right, this was kind of, I'll call it a default, but really you could have changed it in the earlier version of HTMLQ. Right? So this is now an example, and we can come over here and we can decide what type of question we would like to have. So we can have text, we could have radio buttons, we could have a checkbox, we could have rating, we could have information. So here we'll start off with some radio buttons, and we can see, right, there is our year item, right? So, and that's just our example. So, and then, right, we can just save it. So let's see, so answer mandatory, we'll say true. We'll say label role, and then options. Well, here we'll add our item and see what note is missing. So we'll have to figure out how to do our note. Right. All right, label right now is year, right? Question note, please select your year, options, right? So here we're going to ask them to select their role in the organization. And our options are going to be just listed, right, separated by semicolon. So maybe they're a parent, right, they're a foster parent or relative caregiver. They are caseworker. They are a supervisor. they are a lawyer or judge, educator, and then we have the all-encompassing other. Since I have them all capitalized, I'll do that. Oh, and then, oh, nope, I'm okay. Right, notice that the example here, we don't need a semicolon at the end. So now we can add our item. And so our first question has been added. This, again, is just our, right, example. Right, and we've just, again, this is just the configuration. Whoops. Oh, I see. Oh, that's cool. And then we can save it. So we have to, it saves it to our folder. And then next, maybe we have radio button. Oh, let's do something else. We'll do checkbox, and then we can scroll up and see what our checkbox looks like. Right? And that's, again, just the example. And we can force them to answer. And then we're just going to follow, right, the label. So, thinking about a study that I've been working on. So, maybe next is which region are you associated with? Are you associated with? And then we're going to have regions. So we're going to have region 1, region 2, region 3, region 4, region 5, region 6, and then we're going to add that item. And so if we scroll down, we notice there's our first question, and there's our next question, and then maybe we have another. We could have a text area where they can make some kind of comment. Let's see what that would look like. All right, so it's just general comments. My study so far doesn't call for anything like that. So we could do select. What does that look like? This is like a drop box, right? So they could come over here and like pick one of these areas. Right? I'm just going to go back to my checkbox because I'm boring. Oh, I forgot provider in one of my things. Right, so here, what is your field? Right, it could be health, it could be education, it could be legal, it could be other. Right, again, I'm just making things up as I go along, right? And then I could add this item, and if I wanted to, I could, right, have a text area, right? It's not going to be mandatory. We can add that. Oh, it's still adding. And now we could come down here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, right? So I could save this to my settings folder. So there it is, and I'm going to, again, right, it says save to settings folder. Notice that it just went right to the folder that we originally grabbed, so I gotta have to go into settings, and I'm going to rewrite this file. Do I want to write over it? Yes, because I've just added my amazing questions. here, this is where I'm going to put in my statements. So if you have them in, right, say an Excel file, you'll have to paste them, right, in such a way that they are, right, text. So you have to be at least a little careful here. So we're just going to make things up. Happy, sad. No, I don't like those. We can make it. These could be anything. I'm thinking of things that statements I've had. Here, right, there are no statements loaded, so it's not giving me, right, an option quite yet to set this up, right? This is going to change the map XML file. But right now we're just poking through here, right? So here, right, this is basically going to be related to the language file that we, again, changed by hand previously. So here we can customize the user interface language for our project, right? And we, again, have this example about whether or not it's a test, right? So I can have, right, help me, agree, neutral. So here, right, I could change this and make this like my view. And I could make this unlike my view. And maybe I don't really want to change any of those things. I have some language things, and here is, right, my welcome screen. So here, right, you notice that it has these little B's, right, /B. This has to do with the formatting, right? So if I wanted to change this, right, so this is a study investigating views of child safety, right? And we'll keep these things, maximize the size of your browser, right? Click on the continue button, right? Maybe we want to have some other information, right? So we could have /B, have to remember some HTML things again, right? All data collected is anonymous and right. So there, I type that in, whether or not I have an access code. We did that way back at the beginning when we did our config. Remember, it was our great access code 12345, which we will never use, right? And right, so these are just user screen things. And again, this would be, right, where we would have our information about our study. So information about our study, right? Topic, anonymous, IRB approval, etc. Right? And we'd probably have, well, down here we will here we will give the condition of instruction, right? Think about your role within this agency while performing these next steps, right? And then we'll do, I think it's split into 3 piles, a pile for statements So here we change this, so statements you feel are unlike your view. You feel are like your view, and a pile for the rest. I'm just going to call it neutral, since that's what we named it, or kept it that way. Right, and then there's some instructions, and we'll keep those the same. And then here's some more instructions. So we didn't call it agree, we called this like my view pile. We didn't call this disagree, we called this unlike my view pile. And so we just have to write for, like my view and unlike my view. And here we have a place for our condition of instruction, and I'm just going to kind of reiterate this, right? So thinking about your role and views about this agency's work. And I'm going to just say, sort these statements based on your viewpoint. I like to also often say that there are no right or wrong answers. So maybe I'll do that over here. I don't remember what BR is. Well, I took courses in HTML. I don't remember. So here, right? Right, now you're going to place, and we'll do that. We could give our condition of instruction again, just as a reminder. And now, right, we haven't said if it's going to be plus or minus 4, but here we're going to allow this. So, yeah. All right, we could save this setting. I think that there is, I know that this was discussed at one point, but I believe that you can have your oh, okay. Yes. So here, right, so we put these things in the config file. I think that there is a way to make this happen first, but for right now we won't worry about that. And now we're going to click on, right, our here, and this is going to be our new language file in our settings. Now, here, right, you might be thinking, this is all great and good, but I'm going to have 2 online Q studies. That's okay. All you do is you could have multiple folders on your desktop. So one could be called, right, agency Q, and then maybe I have another folder and it's called faculty Q for faculty views, right? I can set this all up, right, for 2 different studies really simultaneously. The key is when I come here and I originally selected my file, right, It doesn't have to be called Easy HTMLQ, right? That folder that we put on the desktop. Again, we could call it Agency Q and Faculty Q. We could call it anything. As I tell my programming students, you could call it poop if you really wanted to, because that's fun. Everybody thinks the word poop is funny. And here, right, we have some details. We're going to actually be happy with our default settings, right? Here, right, now we are ready to do our next stages as far as uploading things into Firebase, right? and all of these nice things where we can change details. This part of our project should be pretty close to what we did before as far as our Firebase settings. I'm not going to do this step right now because I'll remind you that we didn't put anything in here for our statements, right? We'll do that in our next video, part 3.